All right, I wanted to talk about the scaps and impingements. You know, it's very common in baseball guys to get pain referred down the throwing arm. This could be pitchers, throwing athletes. That pain, usually if it's feeling referred from here, or you feel it moving all the way down to the middle of your arm, is coming from the supraspinatus. It's a muscle just under your clavicle. It's the one I actually tore when I tore my rotator cuff, and it comes from this problem, and the problem is the impingement. And what an impingement is basically you have your scaps, and your scaps are like a floating bone over your rib cage. And the arm is only built to go about that high. So to bring the arm above the head, the arm can't continue, the humerus right here can't continue to lift because it's at the end of range. It's at the top at the tip of the chromium, or the top of the shoulder capsule. So what actually has to happen is the whole scapular bone, the whole floating shoulder has to lift up, right? And what happens is when we do that, when we throw, is there's some real architecture here that has to occur to get the scap to lift. Basically, what it is it's like a triangle, and there's a muscle on the top, on this side, and down on this side. So if you think of a triangle, there's a muscle at all 3 points, and the muscles pull in directions to actually make it rotate. So the one on the top kind of pulls in this direction, the one on the bottom kind of pulls down in this direction, and the one here kind of pulls in that direction, and it makes it float and shift up and go over your head. And what happens is when guys get that pain and impingement, it's because it's not moving. It's because something has got it stuck and it's not moving. A lot of times fatigue. I also believe because the lat lays down over it, the lat can get knotted up and suppress it and really shut off some of those muscles. Specifically the serratus anterior, which is one of the most important muscles. It's the one over here that pulls the scap around, which also allows it to go up. Because if this muscle isn't pulling, and just the muscle on the top and the side are pulling, then really the shoulder's just doing this. But once these pull and the one around the side pulls, it actually doesn't just do this, it actually goes up, it elevates up, or upwardly rotates. Okay, so if you're having that referred pain, you're having dysfunction there. And the best way to deal with that is, I believe, is getting into this muscle, the serratus anterior. It literally lines the rib cage wall, and it's on the side under your lat, and it's literally just pulling the scap around. So how we hit that is we need to get in those push-up plus positions where our arms are extended. We don't want a lot of extension flexion in the arms. We want to get it in pushing the scap out and back, or protracting, retracting. So basically, if you look at from the back, the scap is pinching and then protracting out, pinching, protracting out, okay? So it's like this. It's like you're reaching for something. You're reaching for something. This would be a great exercise to do in all positions, starting to go overhead with it, all positions, even down and around, okay? And just trying to pull that serratus, pull that scap around, feeling that whole wing flip around as I reach out, okay? This would be an excellent exercise, both sides, ideally, for those who are feeling that impingement or that pain coming down. Because more than likely, you're just over-activating your levator scap. You're going like this to lift, right? That's what we do. It's best if we can even shut this guy off. Feel him push down, and this one pull around. That does a better job of lifting the scap. Then when you activate this just kind of pulls it up and doesn't allow it to upwardly rotate. Okay, so really when you're working specifically overhead, and we do a lot of overhead work because it's critical, not only do we get these scaps functioning or these muscles functioning, but when we go overhead, that they're on and they're stable and they're holding a load, because studies show up to 60 pounds of force at a high velocity pulls your arm back, and then up to 124% of your body weight is pulling your arm out of socket. So That's why we work overhead, because we want to get in a position where we can hold good weight overhead with those muscles active to upwardly rotate and stabilize and support the arm overhead, because that's the where we're going to receive forces as high velocity throwing athletes. So this is a good place just to get the scap functioning again if you're having problems, okay, along with your other exercises. And then as you get better function, where when you go overhead, you're not like this, you're actually starting to get fully overhead, then you can start loading overhead and creating more stability there. So good assessments right now, even if you're not feeling this pain, is if you go like this with your arms, where do you stop? Do you stop here, okay? Or can you go all the way up, okay? If you can't go all the way up, then we have a lot of those functional issues we got to work on. And a great place would be starting here, okay? And then trying to shut that levator scap off as you go up and get the serratus mid-trap to take over and start building that scapular function. And unfortunately, it's very common when athletes start having shoulder problems that it's directly linked to their scapular function, which is also eventually could become a serious problem like it did for me, and it could tear your rotator cuff and pretty much in your career. So if you're having those issues, work on these exercises and work and get into overhead strength. Also with the TopVelocity programs, we go more into overhead development and strength development. So I hope that helps. I've been getting a lot of those questions. If you have any more questions on it, let me know.